Some very exciting stuff to go over today, the culmination of many, many, many years of the Canadian circuit in general. We're hoping this is going to be one of those capstone things for Model UN that Canada is going to see. And we're very excited to share a lot of announcements and updates with you today. So first things first, hello everyone, my name is William. I have met a lot of you before, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the coaches for Linkey at the North York campus. We want to introduce ourselves very briefly.
I teach at all campuses, but I primarily teach with the more high-level competitive courses. And William, take it away, man.
Sure. So we're going to be running through a couple of very exciting things. First of all, just a general introduction to the United Nations, trying to understand a little bit about Model United Nations. And after we finish that, we have a very exciting conference we're going to talk to you about. And the reason why I suspect most of you are here about HMUN, right? And HMUN, the prestige that it has and the amount of reputation it has is something that we're very excited to share with the legacies of what it has to offer and what it has to bring. Okay, so after about an hour of us going into the very important details and a lot of things, I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions. We can save those questions towards the end. After, we'll have a little bit of break between the presentation and towards the questions where you guys can grab a slice of pizza, some food, and then we're going to get into the questions that all of that you have. We're going to field all of them today and hopefully give you a little bit, a taste of what HMUN has to offer. Okay, so first things first. A question that I love to start with. What is the United Nations? Now, I see that we have a range of students and parents in the room, so I want to open this question up very quickly. What is the United Nations? What is the purpose of the UN? Does anyone have an answer, a guess, something they want to answer? For online, I'm going to generally not check, but if someone does know, just give me a heads up and I can check for that. But anyone have an answer in here maybe? What might be the purpose of the United Nations? A lot of us are here in the Model UN program, a lot of parents as well. If anyone has a guess to make, what is the point of the UN?
Oh, I see a hand.
Is that a hand? Whoa, a hand. Please, please. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so when we're answering what the United Nations does, right, we're saying there are these global problems that need to be solved, right? Sure. So we have global issues, maybe something like a world disease. We saw that with COVID-19 only a few years ago. We see that with maybe conflicts, right? The UNSC has a lot of jurisdiction there. But I think a lot of people ask this because it almost seems like it does everything, right? And I want to quickly touch upon that for just a quick second about the United Nations. One of my favorite photos about the United Nations that I like to show is, okay, that's a bit dark, a bit hard to see. A black and white image of the UN. That's a bit better. A black and white image of the UN. And this is an image that they took, I believe, in 1946, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I got the dates 1 or 2 years off. It's a photo of the United Nations General Assembly, the UNGA in New York City, right? And the UNG is supposed to be this group of 193 countries that comes together and debates on issues that are what we call holistic, right? They range for such a large amount of issues that we need all the member states' presence. They issue these recommendations that say we need to get this done X, Y, and Z. So a lot of people, I feel, when we talk about the United Nations, we think of it as this large body that just does everything under the sun. It just does everything and tries to bring global peace. But that's not the case. A global peace isn't what the UN was built to do, right? The global peace and a utopia isn't what the United Nations is designed for. It's not meant to bring the world into this state of glory or a state of peace. It's really trying to do what is maintain the status quo. The job of the United Nations is really to prevent, from a very famous quote, prevent humanity from hell, right? It's supposed to prevent humanity from going back in these processes and stages of development. It's meant to keep us in a state of almost peace, but it's not meant to design us for a utopia. So the United Nations does almost these very wide-ranging things. But at the same time, I feel that a lot of people think about the United Nations in terms of the peacekeeping program. Another one of those very famous bullet points for what the UN does is peacekeeping. Of course, the UN is designed to keep peace. But even peacekeepers, when we look at it, there's a tiny caveat there where the peacekeepers, their job isn't to create peace, it's to maintain it. Their job isn't to go into an active conflict and figure things out, right? Their job isn't to somehow bring a conflict to an end. The conflict has concluded. The peacekeepers are meant to maintain the way things are meant to go, to prevent conflict from erupting, to prevent conflict from breaking out. So we have this like broad characteristic, then this broad picture of what the United Nations is meant to do. It covers a lot of these subject areas. It's meant to maintain some of the processes. But the UN does more than just that. And I want to make sure that we understand that before going further into the presentation. It has a very broad mandate, the United Nations, because the United Nations is what we call an international organization, an IO. And international organizations are very interesting. They're very unique. They're unique because international organizations have a character and life of their own. This means that on the world stage, they are treated as another one of those actors that are at play. So we have the WHO, part of the UN. We have all of these international organizations that some might deal with trade, some might deal with security. But the interesting thing about it is the United Nations can present itself as a representation of a lot of what those 193 member states has to offer. I show this picture because this picture is a great example of that. Right there towards the left here, does anyone know which Secretary General this is? You want to take a wild guess? Ban Ki-moon, there we go. And this is a photo of the peace processes in Cuba for the country of Colombia. And Colombia had a nearly 50-year-long civil conflict that just did not seem to come to an end. So when the government, pictured here on the left, and the rebel group, pictured here on the right, when they finally sat down to sign that peace agreement, the United Nations was standing there. Does this mean the United Nations brokered that peace deal? Not necessarily, but the United Nations is a representation of what these 193 members stand for, or at the very least, what the majority of them seem to stand for, or want the UN to stand for. So the UN, interesting, not only does it have a broad mandate, not only does it do all of these broad, wide-ranging things, but it also has an international character of its own. Where am I going with this? Because the United Nations has such an interesting makeup of duties and responsibilities, sometimes they're substantial, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're recommendations, sometimes they're actual legally binding documents, depends again on which part of the United Nations we're talking about. The United Nations has such a deep and profound influence on the way the world works. It really does. And the best example of a modern day program, initiative by the UN, is the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, has legitimately penetrated a lot of state top-down level policies, whether that's because they directly use the SDGs as a benchmark of this is what a sustainable world looks like and how should we achieve it, or sometimes, for example, in Africa, a large part of the continent of Africa, I was actually speaking to the chief economist for the entirety continent of Africa at the World Bank only a month ago. And I was talking to him and I was asking him the questions of, well, how do we direct policy? How do we develop the country of Africa, right? Because that's a big issue for the continent right now. And there's a lot of answers. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But something that I noticed throughout that discussion I had with him, well, it's completely motivated by the idea of eradicating poverty. Right? To get rid of poverty means to allow everyone to have the same level to build themselves up, to build the economy up in such a way that it is sustainable. And guess who said that first? The United Nations. This is a United Nations initiative. This is what the SDG said was the #1 thing to do, is eradicate poverty, right? It's goal #1. It's literally the first thing we got to do. And so in that regard, the United Nations has a profound influence on the way that many things work, whether we know it or not. If we look at these government policies and these ways that shape our world, a lot of the ways the United Nations has talked about it has seeped into the ways those policies have been written. For that reason, not alone maybe, but for that reason, model United Nations is one of those really extravagant and really unique activities, because it allows you as delegates the opportunity to work with those incredibly holistic yet very substantial and very meaningful policies. I'm saying this because I feel that in recent years especially, you can welcome in recent years especially, people think about the United Nations as this body that doesn't do anything, right? I think there's this pervasive stereotype that, oh, we're going to spend many hours debating about the wording of something and nothing actually gets done. The point I'm trying to say is it does get done, but in ways that we take for granted, in ways that we don't even notice because of how well they work, right? When you take a flight or you want to send mail across international borders, the United Nations fingerprint is all over the ways those things are done, right? And we don't think about that because of how profound it has on our day-to-day life. Model UN then is this really special activity that we get to do because we get a part to play in it. We get to try and see what it means to actually carry out those very significant but sometimes overlooked policies. These policies and things we learn to design and learn to build don't necessarily always have to be those really big ones, those extravagant, really stellar ones, because even the small ones down at the ground, those also have the same amount of impact that the larger ones have. So, in Model UN then, what do we actually do? In Model UN, the most characteristic way we can think about it is every single delegate, maybe everyone in this room, right, the students in this room, you guys represent a country. And you say, this is what the country believes, this is what the country needs to do, this is what the country thinks the best way to solve this problem is. And countries have different solutions and different ways of approaching this issue. Some countries have more funding than others. Some countries' geographies are more disaster prone. Some countries may be bordering other countries that have regional instability. All of these reasons affect the way different countries think about these world issues. And in Model UN, the core of it is that you guys all represent these different interests, these different ways of doing things. And at the end of the day, hopefully, in your committee sessions, in the conference, in the competition, you work with the other countries to design a solution that, even if it doesn't work for everyone, it fits what a lot of people need. And that's really cool. It's that diplomacy and negotiation we see at play in Model UN. So Model UN gives students then the chances to think about critical thinking, about writing, about research, about politics, about diplomacy and negotiations that we really don't see in any other extracurricular, which is why I love Model UN so much and why I think a lot of us are drawn to Model UN, right? Here we can see photos of the delegates actually playing this out. Here on the left are there, and in the UNGA, in the right, I'm not sure what room this is. I assume also the UNGA, but we have the opportunities as students and delegates to carry that diplomacy out, to try it out firsthand. And truthfully, we love this activity so much. Here's a photo of HMUN China. I think a bunch of Linky students in here as well, is we see Model UN as this activity that brings the different perspectives and world events together, that allows delegates to share these perspectives, right? It allows delegates to think about these issues in ways that we didn't think about before. It says, maybe this is the way the world does it today, but is there a better way to do it? Let's challenge that and find a way to do it that we haven't thought about before, that pushes the boundaries of what's possible and innovates on what already exists, to the point where sometimes students, we come up with ideas that we're like, hey, this is really good. Why aren't we doing this? Right? Why isn't this something the world has already considered to do? So Model UN pushes those boundaries. Now, I know the next slide I'm going to show might, for some people say, oh, what am I looking at? I just want to make it very simple to understand that Model UN has different levels of involvement as well, right? We can involve ourselves in Model UN in different ways. And specifically, the three main ways that we can involve ourselves are as delegates, staff, and secretary. Don't worry too much about this. I included this here only so that if anyone wants to look back at the recording to understand what I'm talking about, you can. I'm going to quickly go over this, right? At the bottom here, we have delegates, people who represent those countries, people who say, I'm going to be Canada, I'm going to be China, France, Russia, and I'm going to advocate for those countries and say, this is what the country believes. This is what we should do. It's what the country wants us to do. Slightly above that, we have the staff. The staff members help organize these committees, help organize the event, help put it all together. And at the very top, we have the secretariat. They're in charge of overseeing the conference, in charge of putting the conference together, in charge of putting the competition together. I'm sure for a lot of you, we're very interested about this last section, right? This last section about the delegates, how we can participate as countries, how we can participate as the people advocating for a particular stance. With that said, with Model UN and with the United Nations talked about, what we're going to get to in today's presentation, it's the most exciting part, is the announcement of a new competition that's coming to Canada for the very first time. So Nirfan, if you want to take it from here, go ahead.
And do you want me to be over there just to see the slides, or
Sorry?
will it be easier for me to be on that side?
Sure.
Or yeah. Sorry.
That's all good.
I'll just switch. Sorry, everyone. I apologize. Just need a moment for my microphone. Okay. Hi, everyone. So really quickly, thank you again, everyone, for coming out to this event. Thank you, William, for giving us a comprehensive introduction
into Model UN, and into the United Nations. So normally in the world of Model UN, we would usually start by explaining what is Model UN, then building our way up to explain a little bit about competition, a little bit about the local circuit, and then one day maybe you may actually travel outside of your home, right? You might go to another city like Montreal or Vancouver. We're actually going to jump many more steps than that. We're going to jump to what we call the international circuit. So for anybody joining who's fairly new to Model UN, in the world of Model UN, there isn't a single bracket. There isn't a single championship that formally is the world title, at least not until today, maybe. Having said that, generally speaking, the most impressive titles you could earn in Model UN are run by students at some of the world's most famous universities. From students at Harvard to Princeton to Yale, these conferences are sometimes triple or quadruple the largest conferences you'll ever see in Canada. At Harvard Model UN in the United States, there are nearly 4,500 people involved. We are talking on delegates alone, over 3,500 people, 500 teachers, which usually exceeds the size of a local conference, and hundreds of Harvard University students and staff. These incredible conferences are the dream conferences that people like to attend when they're in the Model UN circuit. Having said that, these conferences are not big enough. They have become so large and so incredibly famous that at Harvard MUN earlier this year, the majority of people that applied to compete did not get a spot, even with thousands of delegates. Every team this year has been capped at only 20 students. So these conferences are the pinnacle, the echelon of what is Model UN. Having said that, a couple decades ago, these conferences realized conferences and schools around the world want to experience what they get experienced in the United States and in their home conferences like in Oxford. So they started creating what we call the international circuit. Satellite conferences and periphery conferences were created to expand their style, their philosophies, their policies, and ultimately expand a little bit of the competition as well to different parts of the world. These are not simple events. When a conference decides to go abroad, they have a very extensive selection process. They look for the cities that love Model UN the most. They look for the places that are most committed to Model UN, and they are very, very, very selective with who they choose to work with. We are very excited to announce today, as you can see, that Harvard Model UN, the world's oldest, largest conference, has chosen Canada as its next destination, with Toronto, its home city, and the Linky Foundation as its exclusive partner. Can we give a big round of applause for them choosing Canada? Thank you. So this conference is going to be taking place May 28th to 31st. We will share information on website and logistics in a bit, but very simply put, do I just click the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So this conference at Harvard MUN USA has been running for over 73 years now. They have been running their conference for decades. In fact, most conferences, they start as, clubs, not at high schools, but at universities. But Harvard Model UN's team started as a club in the 1950s, became so large, it spun off as a nonprofit in the 1970s, and is now a ridiculously large organization that is based out of Harvard University. This is the largest student organization out of Harvard University, and you will see that Harvard MUN is part of a family of international relations activities organized what we call the Harvard International Relations Council. Harvard MUN is part of the family that organizes Harvard World MUN, Harvard National MUN, the Academic Review Journal for International Relations, a series of different projects that help to explain and understand the importance of world issues and global affairs. Our conference is going to take place at this beautiful venue, the Westin Harbor Castle, right on waterfront Toronto. For anyone who is interested, we are going to be having extensive information. Oh, you see it? No. Second. Yes, sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah. So for anyone who's interested in staying at our venue, we're going to have more information about how you can stay later down the road. Having said that, there is something I would like to mention. For all the students here who are fairly new to Model UN, it is important to understand that we will have extensive support. Although Harvard Model UN Canada will be an elite competitive conference that only the best of the best can join, we will still have committees that are suitable for everyone. So whether you're someone who's very new to the idea of Model UN or have never participated in it before, or if you are some of the best that our country has to offer, we will have a committee suitable for you. Before I pass it off back to William, I would like to once again thank our partner, the Harvard International Relations Council, for not only choosing Canada, but also for spending the time, energy, and resources for coming to our country. I want everyone to understand that when they commit to a nation, it's an enormous effort. The conference that we're running in Canada isn't even staffed by the traditional Harvard MUN team. It's exclusively staffed by what we call the ICMUN team, the Intercollegiate Travel Team. They have selected only the best of their competitive travel team to judge the committees here. This is not something that a single other Harvard conference has anywhere in the world, not even in the United States. This is something that they're doing for the first time because they recognize that Canadians love Model UN more than anyone else. So having said that, William, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, perfect. Thank
Go
you
ahead.
so much. So, like Nirpan said, this is an extraordinary event, right? It's not only extraordinary in the sense that it's exclusive, in the sense that it's coming to Canada for the first time, but because it has these legacies of excellence that we are building on, right? It's the fact that Harvard MUN and the IRC have been doing this for so long that allows us to tap into that legacy, to tap into that experience and use that experience to make a conference like no other. So what kind of conference are we talking about? We're talking about Canada's premier conference. Without any bedazzling of the facts here, we're building a truly Canadian conference. And when we say truly Canadian, there are committees in our conference where we will be actively reaching out to the other parts of Canada, not just Ontario. We're branching out to Canada to bring Canada together for a conference where we as Canadians can compete on a truly national level, where we as Canadians have the ability to compete against each other from across the provinces and territories to bring our best ideas, share those ideas, and hopefully build something better for all of us. So this conference, Harvard MUN Canada, not only brings all of that tradition, all of those legacies of excellence, right, but also innovates on them in a way that helps us break the boundaries of what we think Model UN can do. We're going to make Model UN, we're using this conference by combining innovation and tradition, by putting these two components together, and hopefully providing a conference for all delegates, an experience like no other, an unforgettable delegate experience. Now, very briefly, we're going to quickly talk about the Harvard MUN Canada board as it stands. We have Mr. Nicholas here on the left, Mrs. Emily here, and then Mr. Nirpan as well in the room. These three are going to help us put together a great conference, put together a wonderful experience for all. Did you want to jump in and say something briefly?
Yeah, really quickly. Guys, that was me before the conference. I've aged very quickly. That's how tired I am. But I can quickly speak on the board and responsibilities. So for anyone who's curious about the technicalities, because we know we have a lot of people joining in from home, how it's going to take place is right now, the Harvard MUN team in the United States is going through an election process. So selecting the secretariat is not at the discretion of any individual. The Harvard students vote and decide who has the right to lead Harvard MUN Canada. Those elections will wrap up in approximately 2 weeks, and we'll have clarity on exactly who will be the Secretary General. In the meantime, Mr. Nicholas Yang, who leads Harvard MUN USA, is the interim Secretary General of the conference, and Ms. Emily Chen, she is the one that's the Director of Northern Expansion. But there is a fun fact. Ms. Emily Chen right now, she's on the Intercollegiate Travel Team, is also a former Linky student at this location. She used to be at a public school out in Oakville, and she was in Oakville, Trafalgar. So if you know anyone at that school, she was a student just like you. So it's really awesome to see how Linky students have been doing incredible things, not just here, but even after they leave our doors.
Perfect. So a couple of information about the conference then. I'm going to give a broad overview for now, so that way we can get into the specific questions for anyone, anything that you guys might have. Couple things about the conference. Expected, we're going to see how many students we're bringing. We're going to expect this to be a large conference. We're going to bring as many delegates as we can. For the conference, we have 10 committees. The breakdown of these 10 committees are like this. There are going to be 4 General Assemblies, 4 ECOSOC committees, Economic and Social Council committees, and then 2 crises. Now, the reason why we built these committees like the way we are, the structure of this conference, is to ensure that there is a committee for delegates of all skill levels. No matter if you are the championship, the best that Canada has to offer, or a delegate who might be starting out for the very first time, there's no better place to do it than HMUN Canada. Not only will you be ensured that the directors are world class for what they offer and the amount of knowledge and the amount of experience they bring, but no matter for beginner delegates or for the delegates who are well seasoned, experts in their own regards, this conference offers something for all of you. It provides that spectrum of experience and spectrum of different skill levels, so you're always competing against your peers, against like-minded individuals who you can bounce off ideas, develop new solutions, and push the boundaries for Model UN. In addition to these 10 wonderful committees, we're going to expect delegates from across Canada, the United States, and even potentially the world, right? We're going to make this a conference that's available to everyone, but primarily at home here in Canada. That's what we want to say is, HMUN is coming to Canada for the first time, and we're not going to miss up on this opportunity. It's going to be an opportunity for all Canadians to afford, to all Canadians to come, and an experience for delegates across the different skill levels that we might have. In addition to this, we're going to bring as many distinguished guests and experts to the conference as possible. So when you're in there in that committee room and you're thinking, I don't understand this doesn't make sense, or I have this really cool idea, but I'd like some feedback on it. Maybe there's something about this idea that I'd like to tweak. We're going to do our very best and bring the distinguished experts in their fields to come to HMUN Canada and be there for delegates to say, here's some advice I might have. Here's a little bit of direction for the committee. Maybe a talk or two on thinking about how their field works, about the way their field interacts with Model UN, and for delegates then to have the opportunity to bounce ideas off of those experts against those distinguished guests and create something more collaborative and allow delegates to push what they know by involving the people within, the experts within their own fields. Truthfully, guys, this is going to be Canada's premier Model UN conference. We're bringing the legacies of excellence, we're bringing the experience that we have, and we're innovating on it in a way that allows delegates from across the spectrum of experience to have something for them, to push what they know, and to also practice their skills and put those skills to the test. Right? Not only will you have the opportunity to think about things maybe you haven't thought about before, push those boundaries, but you'll also going to allow yourselves to compete against like-minded competitors who are going to challenge you on your ideas. Maybe you think, oh, I didn't think about that before, but now I got to look at it a different way, right? A different perspective. And that's what HMUN Canada we're going to do. We're going to offer for the delegates across those skills. A couple of features then for the conference that we're very excited to highlight for the delegates as well. Here on the left, we're going to have a midnight crisis, right? For delegates, there's going to be this unexpected thing that comes up, and delegates will be tasked with fixing a challenge that they have no prior time to deal with. And it's this really fun, immersive committee that allows delegates who stay at the venue, delegates who are there on the day of the conference, to have a challenge for, to interact with other delegates and fix this real-time problem, a real-time solution they have. In addition to this, we're very excited about the Delegate Gala, a social for delegates to talk about all of their experiences, to celebrate their achievements across the conference, to give delegates that thing to look forward to unwind a little bit, and have a little bit of fun with, again, delegates from across Canada, a great Delegate Gala and social, and at the very end, of course, immersive committees. We're going to make this academic, we're going to make this fun, we're going to make it innovative, and we're going to have a committee for everyone. So delegates, at the end of the day, no matter what committee you might be placed in, you can look back on it and say that was an unforgettable experience. It's an experience that I'm glad I had, and an experience that has come here, finally, to Canada. Again, like Mr. Nirapan talked about, a wonderful Model UN circuit we have here, and finally we get to host what a wonderful conference that is, Harvard Model UN Canada. I know that we briefly talked about this, but we're just going to quickly go over it one more time, is the venue. Truly, this is possibly the best venue we could have gotten in Toronto, right, is the Western Harbour Castle. Not only will this be a wonderful place for the debates to occur, but some of these committees will be debating with a clear view of the waterfront, right, debating against other delegates as the wonderful views of Toronto are in front of you. And not only that, the venue is situated in a part of downtown Toronto that is easily accessible to other parts of downtown, right? All of these wonderful places to unwind next to parks, to restaurants, etc. Delegates will have a wonderful time and experience at this venue, where we're so lucky to be at the Western Harbour Castle downtown. Okay. With that being said then, registration is currently live for the conference, and we're very excited to announce that for everyone attending the event today, delegates who register by tonight get $10 off the already early bird discount of $175. So again, early registration closes December 15th, but for those who attend this event in person or online, you can use the code LK10 to get $10 off the already, again, early pricing of $175. This registration we're trying to make as affordable to Canadians across Canada, and we're going to offer different types of packages of financial aid for those who might need it. We're going to work with delegates to ensure that we bring the best of the best to this conference. We hope to see all of you there.
Do you mind if I add a little
Of
more
course.
as well? So thank you again, Mr. William Wang. So very quickly, everyone, one thing we really want to get the word out about is for this conference, I'll be really frank, it is generally a little bit more expensive than what you might see in the local Canadian circuit. However, this is run through our nonprofit arm. This is legitimately the most affordable Harvard-MUN conference you could find. It is on par with pricing for Harvard-MUN USA. But on top of that, through generous support through the Linky Foundation, we are offering complete financial aid for any Canadian students below the low-income cutoff line in Canada. If you know somebody who would want to be a part of this, anyone who needs financial help to attend this conference, we do not want it to be a barrier. So please, spread the word, let people know. I believe the registration form is live for financial aid. You can see it on the website. We really want to make sure that all Canadians are represented. And I'm not sure if we have another slide after this, but can we reveal a little bit about the Tournament of Champions? What do you think?
I think, are we ready for it is the question.
They didn't say anything. We're not giving it to them.
No, okay.
Wait, we'll give you one more chance. Are you excited for the Tournament of Champions? Can we make some noise, please? Come on, yeah, there you go. Okay. So, very quickly, everyone, because we can't give away too much, and because I sit on the board, I know more than I'm allowed to tell you. I will just tell you very briefly what is happening right now behind the scenes and will be released at some point this month is, sorry about that, what will be released sometime this month is that we are going to be announcing the specifics of how the Canadian Tournament of Champions will work. But I can tell you generally how it's going to operate. There are going to be 3 committees designated at Harvard-MUN Canada. 1 General Assembly, 1 ECOSOC, and 1 Crisis Committee. That committee will be invitation only. There will be the best students. It doesn't mean you have to have me give you a recommendation. It means you'll have to win at a qualifying conference. Conferences around the country will have the opportunity to participate as qualifiers, and anyone who wins in certain committees gets a spot in the Tournament of Champions. Conferences, large and small, including some of the largest conferences in the country, have already started flooding my inbox with inquiries about being part of this system. We are incredibly excited for this, and this is actually one of the reasons why Harvard-MUN chose Toronto as its next destination. Because nowhere in the world, with all the international partners that Harvard-MUN has, including even in the United States, there is no place on earth they have a national Tournament of Champions. This will be precedent setting. If this conference works out the way that we intend it to, their plan is to replicate the Canadian model for Model UN circuits everywhere. So we're going to be giving information to schools, to teachers, and to students very soon. We are actively debating and negotiating the criteria, making sure every province, even every territory, is represented in the system. Once the details are finalized and signed by all parties, we are going to have a huge announcement, and we will make sure that your school knows about it. If you want to get the latest updates, please follow us on Instagram. We're going to have regular updates. What's the name of the Instagram account again?
HMUN Canada.
HMUN Canada. So go on HMUN Canada, follow us, like us,
You can actually go
whatever
to the
people
next
do on social
slide.
media. Oh, is it on the next slide? That is great. So
there you go. For those who want to follow the Instagram, we have a very convenient QR code for you guys to scan. Go ahead and follow it. All the updates, very fun announcements, very exciting announcement we're going to post there.
And do you mind grabbing the light right there just so people can see it? Perfect. So everyone, we know that a lot of you guys are tired. For those that are online, you could just list some questions in the chat. I do have to be honest, the people in the room look really hungry, and either they're going to eat the pizza or they're going to eat meat. So I would rather they get food before we take any more questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, if that's okay with you, William, and then we'll come back to the presentation. But thank you, everyone, for joining HMUN Canada's presentation today. We're really excited. We hope that all of you guys can join us at the event, and we hope all of you guys enjoyed being at the event today. Thank you so much. Bye. Go ahead. Guys, you can go for the pizza now. Sorry, the microphone's still on.
Have questions, we can answer them now. I didn't actually see any questions online, so anyone who is online and have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'll quickly be coming over every so often just to check the chat here. So again, anyone who has any questions about the conference, anything to ask us, we'd be more than happy to answer.
William, are we unmuted, by the way?
I think so.
So we got a question that was in the audience. It was about AD applications. So for anyone who's interested in being an assistant director, we are going to have a public AD application process. For those that are unfamiliar, an assistant director is somebody who helps run a committee. Because we have students traveling from abroad and we're trying to balance the costs that are involved in the conference, every single satellite conference recruits students to be part of these committees. However, I want to warn students very early. An assistant director is a very, very, very elite position at a conference. It typically requires extensive modeling experience and performance. Having said that, for any students that are interested, we recommend that one, you register first because spots are going quickly. But then two, if you are ever selected as an assistant director, in that case, we're more than happy to refund any delegate fees, and you're more than welcome to be part of it. For the actual application process itself, we will disclose more information once some details are confirmed, but we can tell you right up front that we will be taking students that are in university, that are in grade 12, and that are in CEGEP for sure. And we will have some other special categories to consider as well. But again, we highly recommend students apply as delegates first. If only they cannot be, if any time they're accepted as an AD, then we will refund them. And thank you for that question. Are there any questions in the audience? William, you want to grab them in online? For anyone online, guys, feel free to ask your questions. It's not a problem at all. So those deadlines will only be determined later. We won't be able to clarify that now, but based on our expectations, registration would probably open sometime mid-November, close sometime mid-December.
Yeah, there was a question actually online about if I'm a beginner delegate, right? Maybe no experience yet. What committee should I choose out of the General Assemblies, out of the Economic Social Councils, ECOSOC, and out of Crisis? Which one of those three? Generally, for those who have no experience or beginner delegates trying it out, we recommend the General Assembly. HMUN Canada will actually have a beginner-friendly committee, a committee where delegates who maybe don't have any prior experience, maybe delegates who have a little bit of experience but aren't too sure yet. It's a committee for those delegates where we'll walk you by step what it means to do Model UN. So every time we get to a new step that you're not sure about, the staff team at the front, they'll help explain this is what we're doing, this is what it means. So for delegates who don't have any experience or maybe very limited experience, we do have a committee for you. It's the beginner-friendly General Assembly. That's what we would recommend.
So I have a quick question. Is the AD application online yet? Not yet.
The AD, information about the AD application will be public and made publicly available in just the when we figure the final details out. I saw that there were a couple of questions about that. There was a question about age restrictions for this conference, which is a great question. The answer for this is you have to either be in high school or younger than high school to attend this conference, right? We're making this available to anyone who is either in high school in CEGEP or younger than high school. That is the age range we're allowing. So no one who is in university, those you can't attend the conference, but we're going to be accepting those age ranges. And for anyone that is younger than high school, we would generally recommend the beginner-friendly General Assembly is a great fit. But of course, on a case-by-case basis, we'll see for those delegates where you get placed. Any other questions from in-person or online? No, everyone knows perfectly everything about this conference.
Exactly.
To the nail, to the detail. We know.
No other online questions? Sometimes there usually are.
What about applications for smaller volunteering roles?
Oh, that is true. That's a great question, William.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I would say for smaller volunteering related roles, those applications will open up over time. Generally speaking, everyone, when it comes to volunteering for a conference like this, we won't be recruiting everyone all at the same time. As roles are needed over time, we'll be adding people to our team, and we will make sure that whoever is brought on board, we give them the right training, the right support to make sure that they feel very welcome on the team, and they also know exactly what they need to do.
There was a question online about whether these slides will be shared and also about the qualification process. Slides, this is a recorded event, so you can always go back through the slides if you're curious. About the qualifications, I'm not sure whether the person who's asking is talking about qualifying for the Tournament of Champions or qualifying for the conference. If we're talking about the qualifying for the conference, as long as you are in CEGEP high school or younger, you can attend this conference. We have a committee for you. We have a committee for delegates of all skill levels. If we're talking about qualifying for the Tournament of Champions, these details will become more solid and concrete in the next few coming weeks. But for now, what we can say is that these are exclusive committees for the best of the best, right? The delegates who will give it their all, who have already given it their all, and this is a place for them to showcase the talents and the experiences they've accrued, the amount of experience they've built up over the prior conferences they've been to. To qualify for that, obviously, we'll have more concrete details when they come out. But for now, we're saying it's an invite-only 3 set of committees. That's for the Tournament of Champions.
Yes, question.
It's not $1,000. It's at least, the pet committees, like what size weight?
So right now, practically what it's looking like is every committee will vary substantially based on just the actual venue capacity. What we'll say generally is the beginner-friendly committees are going to be a little bit larger because there's going to be a lot of explanation involved. In those beginner-friendly committees, we are going to be going step by step as we get to a certain process, exactly what's happening. So in that committee, it's okay to have slightly larger committees because students are going to be learning a lot about the Model UN process. However, for the Tournament of Champion committees, at least tentatively, as of today, our initial plans is that they would be capped at a certain number of people. So very tentatively, we are expecting that the General Assembly for the TOC will be capped around 100 double delegation teams. For ECOSOC, it would be 75, Crisis 50. So that is our current plans for the conference, but these things will change due to logistics and demand, and we can't promise any committee sizes at the moment.
But we will say that the committee sizes are tailored to the committees themselves to ensure that the quality of debate is always on par with what we want, is always on par with the level that we want to ascribe to. And obviously for those beginner-friendly committees, we're trying to walk the process of how to do Model UN, and we're going to give that explanation all at once. Any other questions, in person, online, about any part of the conference? We'd be happy to answer while you guys have us here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question.
So like, let's say you have a delegation, don't have a parent or like a student have this, like a university.
That's actually a really good question. This is something that we are still working on finalizing, but tentatively, our expectation is that as long as there is an adult that is willing to take responsibility for the group, you will be able to, that will count as supervision. Having said that, I strongly support, and I think the entire team would say this very clearly, we highly recommend bringing your faculty advisors from your schools. Your school teachers are some of the most capable coaches that you'll see. They're able to support you. You're able to get the support of your school. And more importantly, if you're actually able to bring your school team and win, you can win a delegation award. Delegation award, for anyone unfamiliar, is where if enough of your students and your team win an award, your team itself gets a special award. So that's why we strongly encourage bringing faculty advisors whenever possible. But purely for minimal supervision purposes, every delegation does need at least one adult faculty advisor of any kind, including a parent, including a university student, for supervision purposes. Thank you. Any other questions? And for those online, if you have no other questions, in a few minutes, we will be ending the call. So this is your last and final chance to get a question in.
While you have us here, where we
Exactly.
can answer any substantive questions that you might have. Yeah.
Are your staffing also going to be taken into consideration for this?
So when we're selecting staff for the roles, every role is dramatically different. As a simple answer, it's not any particular conference that we'll prioritize. We will look at a student's background in general in staffing conferences, whether it be HMUN Canada, which took place earlier this year, or other major conferences in the country like HSMUN, KIMUN, TMUN, VMUN. All these conferences are exceptionally large events. They're very challenging to run. they will all be taken into consideration when selecting staff for the competition. I can clarify that. It's that we just give a recommendation that if you're interested in staffing, it's better to secure your spot at the conference first. If you're selected as a staff, we'll make sure to get your feedback to you. So you're not going to lose out anyway, but we just recommend students lock in their spots early. Guys, what I can tell you, and this is real, even just a day ago, I was talking with a team in Azerbaijan that is planning on coming to this event. And the other teams I'm talking to right now, from Russia, from Brazil, from Vietnam, we have schools all around the world planning on registering. We just want to make sure everyone actually has the chance to attend our competition.
There's a great question online about whether there are group awards, so delegation awards like HMUN China. The answer is yes. We will be having delegation awards both for Canadian and international delegations. And these delegation awards are meant to award those delegations who have really given it all, where the delegates themselves have proven themselves incredibly capable with the help of their faculty advisor, with the help of their delegation. So yes, HMUN Canada will be offering delegation awards. There's more details you can find out about this. I'm pretty sure actually through our website, in the info booklet, we have a little section about delegation awards. So if you're interested, you can take a look there.
This is purely a voluntary role. So everything is purely volunteering. It is through a registered nonprofit, so you can get volunteer hours for the work that you do. So yes, I'd just like to repeat the question that was asked. And the question was, as Linky, the company, we won't be sending a delegation to this conflict, as it would be a conflict of interest, right? So we won't be sending a delegation ourselves. How should you register? The first option is always register with your school. We'd love to have your schools come to this conference, and I'm sure they'd love to be at our conference as well. If for any reason your school is unable to attend, you are then welcome to register as an independent delegate. I'd like to remind delegates that are part of the Linky family that we are not going to have any separate registration on the Linky portal. Linky cannot assist in your application. You must apply directly through the conference website. It is the only way you can register for this competition. That is due to rules with HMUN on very clear and transparent registration for the competition.
Besides, we would love to see your schools come, right? We want this to be a conference that enables Canadians across Canada to be present, right? I saw there's a final question online, and I think maybe that's the final question we take online, and then we can wrap the online portion up. In person, we still have questions. We can stick around for that. Online, there was one last question about how many ADs will be selected. What's the number, right?
So I think tentatively right now, as we're planning on running 10 committees, we are realistically going to have 1 to 2 ADs per committee. So that would be a rough estimate of between 10 to 20 assistant directors. We want to be really clear. A lot of the roles and the needs, they're not based on what I or William or anyone else decides. It's actually based on what the directors from Harvard decide they need. If they need more support, we're more than happy to support them. If they need additional resources, we're more than happy to give it to them. But it is their decision on how many assistant directors are needed per committee. So that's why we can't give you an answer, just a final answer. And just before the people online go, I was just thinking on the previous question they were asking about schools. If anyone here would like to help or encourage their school to come to this conference, and maybe you wanted maybe another adult to talk to them, if you can email, I believe it's info@hmuncanada.org. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So if you can email info@hmuncanada.org, you tell us what school you're from, and you needed us to talk to your school, send you a formal invitation letter to your school or your faculty advisor, we're more than happy to do so. We want to support Canadians. We want to support Canadian students. Anything we can do on our end to help your school come to our conference, we'd be more than happy to do so. So please send us an email. We'd love to provide any support you need.
Okay, perfect. I think so. That ends the online portion then for today. And yeah, if anyone has still any questions in person, we'll stick around to answer those. But online, I think that's good for now. Okay, thank you guys so much for the wonderful kickoff event. We're very excited to see you guys there. We're very excited to make this conference a great reality and a great success for Canadians and the national circuit as a whole.
All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you.